Greetings, friends. Welcome to the What's Right show. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. This hour of the program brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. In a crash, call Sam and Ash 702-820-1234. Or, of course, toll-free number 800-304-2000. Big news today, the economy is doing much better than the naysayers predicted. Now, my take on this is that we are not out of the woods, but the numbers are, well, the numbers, let me just tell you what this is all about, because, of course, Trump was alluding to this last night in his big speech. Now, the Associated Press ran a story first about the job numbers. These came out 2 days ago. And the headline of the piece is typically misleading because they never explain the context for numbers, especially when the context would make the Trump administration look good. The headline ran, U.S. gained 64,000 jobs in November, but lost 105,000 in October. So they said, look, this is we still have a low unemployment rate relatively, but we lost jobs in the marketplace. Now, the real story is what? The real story is that these numbers now, when we've unpackaged them, showed that there was a 162,000 job drop in federal workers. These are people who resigned at the end of the fiscal year 2025. That was on September 30th, if you'll recall, timed together with when the shutdown occurred, right? The budget ran out at the end of the fiscal year. And this was all because of Doge. Elon Musk opting to not go for Susie Wiles' recommendation of an incrementalist approach, went in, scorched earth, and began firing people, shutting down entire agencies. The leftists were getting the vapors. It was a beautiful thing to behold for me, and likely for you as well. If you take the math and you work in the 162,000 federal workers that went, bye-bye, you realize that we actually gained 57,000 jobs in the private sector. And this is what we want. If you look at GDP, if you look at productivity, right, what each U.S. worker contributes to the growth of the economy, government jobs are dead jobs. And the reason that our government payrolls went up, and away in the last 4 years under Joe Biden, a.k.a. President Autopen, is because the Biden administration was constantly padding the economy. It was in dire straits with government hires. So we kept getting the jobs reports. Remember when every time there was a revision, remember when there was a giant revision? They did a big revision every time there were jobs. Yeah, they'd mark it down by thousands of jobs. Whoopsie, well, we made a mistake. But even that, the reality is that most of those jobs are being created in the federal government or via grants to NGOs who are hiring people to help facilitate much of the Biden administration shenanigans. So now we're bringing it back into equilibrium. And those people that work in the government, they don't produce anything. They don't contribute to the growth and expansion of the economy. But when you move a large chunk of those people, let's say more than a third, it seems, into the private sector, now that's the highest and best use of that labor. And this is right. This is great news. Now, what happened today? What is the inflation? The inflation rate is down. We find out this morning to 2.7%. I mean, this is fantastic. And, well, the naysayers are telling us to proceed cautiously. I read a piece about that this morning in the Wall Street Journal. Proceed cautiously. The markets have responded to this, of course, very happy with this. And contributing to this, well, I mean, listen, there's no doubt that the economy has been, we all feel it, right? The economy there's a great deal of uncertainty in the economy. But shelter costs are going down. Housing, in other words, is going down. And you got to assume, what's the number right now that is accepted, Robbie, for the number of illegal immigrants that have been deported or have otherwise self-deported? I mean, if you go to sort of, there's a range of numbers. I've seen 1 million. Is that the number you've seen? I want to know what the sort of the baseline number is. I've seen somewhere around 1 million people. Think about what effect this has on the cost of housing, particularly in places that are already high cost housing states, like, for example, California, which also happens to be a sanctuary state. Or if you live in Los Angeles, you're living in a sanctuary state and a sanctuary city. And where has Trump's robust ICE enforcement, Department of Homeland Security enforcement of illegal immigration been taking place? Where have they been active? Well, it's in these sanctuary jurisdictions. So, I mean, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that criticism. Somebody wrote on the internet. One of these, I forget if it was a news guy, a mainstream media guy, right, who is clearly not a fan of Donaldus Maximus. But he goes in and he writes something along this, what you Republicans need to decide, which is it? Are the immigrants all on welfare, or are they all stealing, buying houses or renting apartments? Which is it? And you can, right? Crazy, right? Imagine you've got 1 million people, back to the million, right? You're back to, not all of them are doing the same thing. It could very well be the case, first, that half of them are on welfare and are on state support, and the other half are employed and are renting houses on their own. But remember what was going on during the Biden invasion. You had people in the country who were being given such generous benefits that they were using those benefits, right? They were both on welfare, and because they were on such generous welfare, they were taking housing and they were paying more for the housing than the locals in whatever jurisdiction, whatever city, county it was, right? And they were pricing out Americans. They were pricing out legal immigrants and native-born Americans. This is just a fact. This is how it was. This is what was going on. And reversing that is going to have an effect. Now, again, Rome wasn't built in a day. The challenge is every politician, every president will tell you this. The time frame of the 2-year congressional election cycle. And this is what you're seeing in the Republican Party right now. You're seeing defections, for example, around Obamacare, where a number of Republicans voted with the Democrats because they're just looking to save their own skin coming into the midterms. They are so sensitive. Every 2 years, they've got to run for office. So Trump it's a run against the clock, is my point. What Trump is doing long-term will help the economy. Repatriating jobs, for example, into the country, using tariffs as a means of encouraging businesses that have either moved abroad or businesses that have started abroad, foreign companies, to build factories in the U.S. is a good thing. It will be good for our economy. It will actually do more maybe for Main Street than it will for Wall Street, but it's something that America needs. How long does it take to build a factory under the best of circumstances? More than a year. This is why Trump hit the ground running. And even so, it's still going to take time for this to come into full bloom. So this is really what it was all about. I got a quick break here, folks. Bear with me as we get through all of this, but I just a little bit of perspective, right? We're gonna get there with the economy. It's just not, it's not gonna happen as quickly as we'd like. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. You're listening to the What's Right Show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. Brief word about Sam and Ash Injury Law. This is my firm. I co-founded it with Ash Watkins, and when I'm not on the radio, I am fighting for people who are getting screwed by insurance companies. Well, they're not, because they've got me and Ash as their lawyers. Now, listen up. When you get into an accident, when you're hurt, you have no idea what's going to come at you. You think that dealing with the insurance company fair and square, coming to them, practicing the golden rule is going to get you a fair result. You are misguided and dead wrong. I talk to people every day, who have tried that path and said, you know what, Sam, I heard you on the radio. I heard one of your commercials. You're right. I'm $3,000, $4,000 upside down. They're asking me to pay money back. This is nonsense. I wasn't at fault. This isn't right. Well, I always say you deserve what's right. And what you deserve is to be treated fairly, to have your losses covered. It's not a lottery win, but you deserve to have your losses covered. And most importantly, you deserve to get your life back. You don't want to be fussing with this, answering calls, writing emails, text messages, in the middle of dinner. The insurance adjuster wanting to catch you off your guard. They do all this stuff. You'll find that happening to you if you or a loved one get into an accident. So don't go down that path. Sam and Ash Injury Law, the only firm to trust for your injury case. 800-304-2000. Offices in Nevada and California. 1-800-304-2000. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. So Trump yesterday in his televised address in the evening got at the job numbers right away. And I'm glad he talked about this because, again, he's talking about the people that are getting the jobs. This is hugely, hugely important. Here's how it started.
We are now seeing reverse migration as migrants go back home, leaving more housing and more jobs for Americans. In the year before my election, all net creation of jobs was going to foreign migrants. Since I took office, 100% of all net job creation has gone to American-born citizens, 100%. In the end, government either serves the productive, patriotic, hardworking American citizen, or it serves those who break the laws, cheat the system, and seek power and profit at the expense of our nation.
It's really perverse, actually, what the Biden team did to the country. And rapacious, in fact. Think about it. First, they got into office, and they initiated the biggest printed money, borrowed money giveaway that our country has ever seen. Now, I was here with you on the radio when this was all transpiring, and I remember as it was happening going, well, I know people are excited to get their checks, but this is going to have disastrous consequences. Just ask, somebody who's an economist about universal basic income, this idea you're going to give everybody a check and then they can live off of it. You give everybody a check, and if it's plus or minus roughly the same amount, the cost of goods, which are by definition finite, right? There's only so many, pots to buy on any given day, so many pans, so many cars, right? And you give everybody the same amount of money. The same people are fighting over the same resources. In fact, now more people have money to spend, and so the market adjusts. This is a fundamental feature of a free market system. All of a sudden, there's more demand. There's more purchase power. Prices go up. And this is what Team Biden did. And so step one was dumping, as Ben Bernanke, remember Ben Bernanke, former Fed chairman, back in the day, he called it, quantitative easing, which is printing money, right? But putting money in the economy. It's like dropping money from helicopters. You ever remember that? Odd sort of Pinochet reference. I don't know. Dropping money from helicopters. So that was Ben Bernanke. That's what they did. Just dropped it, and all of a sudden, nobody could hire anybody. Remember this too? Because suddenly, every 22-year-old had $3,500 to $5,000, $6,000 in their bank account. And they were like, well, I'm not going to go to work. I'm going to take a month off. I'm going to take 2 months. I'm going to go travel. People did that. And what was step two, by the way? If that was the beginning of the disaster, the step two was opening the border and saying, yeah, everybody come in. And it wasn't enough to just open the border. Oh, people want to come to America because America's great. Well, of course, yeah, duh. America is great. But it was even worse than that. Again came the helicopters with the money. And you move here illegally and show up in Chicago. Well, we've got this little NGO, dark money slush fund that we're going to give you tax dollars through. And all of a sudden, you're going to set you up and $35,000 for this household and a $35,000 for that household and all this money. And then we're going to get you set up with jobs. And at the time that the economy really under Biden began to crater and the jobs were terrible, Biden was doing two things. They were plugging the holes in the jobs, in the growth of the economy, plugging the holes with fake created jobs, in the public sector, government jobs, right? Non-productive jobs, useless jobs. Okay. I mean, let's be honest. Government could run with far fewer people. We're demonstrating that now. But they did that, and then they also imported all this illegal labor and sanctified it, right? They came along and said, oh, this labor's, this is good. We're going to give people work permits. We're going to give them, basically temporary permission to operate, right? They get various different exemptions that you have to being deported, and did this boldly, really, but create, again, fake job statistics. And those people were taking jobs from Americans and doing it for less money or working under the table. I mean, somebody someday has to do, a book, yes, of course, but nobody reads anymore. So I think I want the left to see it. So maybe it would have to be an anime, Robbie. My point is somebody needs to do a thorough takedown of everything that the Biden administration did to screw this country over. It was like they got up in the morning, January 2021, go, you know what we're going to do? We're going to screw America right up the you-know-what. And everything they did from that point forward was to that end. Oh, we're going to go round up and do 6 a.m. FBI SWAT raids on grandmas that moseyed around the Capitol on January 6th. That's what we're going to do. And then we're going to go against all of our agents and attorneys, experienced people in the Washington field office, which is certainly no, MAGA picnic, and go, yeah, we're going to raid Trump. We're going to raid Mar-a-Lago. Yeah. No probable cause? No problem. This is all just in this week. Aren't you glad, folks, that I'm back? See, this is why I can't leave. I can't leave my post. I also had just so much going on. I did one show when I was out of the office. Okay. Bottom of the hour here, folks. Buckle up. We got plenty more to cover. Yeah, we'll get to Bongino again. Yeah, it's yesterday's news, but people are talking. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. Excellent. Producer Robbie for the win, folks. Sam Mirejovsky behind the What's Right microphone, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian. Those of you out in California still, don't worry. There's hope. No, I'm kidding. I love California. I just don't like the government. Yeah, there's pockets of California that are great, right? Orange County, for example, has some nice areas. No, I could not live in Los Angeles. You could not pay me enough money to live in the city of Karen Bass. No chance. But here's what Robbie sent me. I'm getting off topic. See how things are going here. Remember how I suggested just before the break that somebody ought to do a thorough assessment of the 4 tragic Biden years. Really just get into it. Look under the hood. Well, Robbie reminded me here that Ken Martin, DNC chair, had some months ago discussed this autopsy, right? But the Democrats were going to do that themselves. Let's see what went wrong. How did we end up losing to the orange man yet again? And this absolute doozy from the New York Times. Oh my goodness. Apparently, Ken Martin, head of the DNC, is scrapping its report. This is the first line in the story, and it's today. Shane Goldmacher, writing for the New York Times, today, quote, the Democratic National Committee is killing its autopsy of 2024. And here's an interesting thing, right? Because it's not just about the election. It's about everything that led up to it. And they've conducted, I guess, 300 interviews. Heck, Robbie, we got to get our hands on this. They've already done the work for us. We should produce this report. Anyway, they did 300 interviews. All 50 states even. They created a document that the DNC said was going to be a way for the Democrats to move forward. Now they're going, we're going to keep it under wraps. Quote, he, meaning Mr. Martin, believes that looking back so publicly and painfully at the past would prove counterproductive for the party as it tries next year to take back power in Congress. A reminder of Democrats' ineptitude, buffoonery, and evil would do what? Would, I guess, prove a bit embarrassing for the party as it tries to pivot toward electoral success. I don't know. Remember when Biden would always say, and then later Kamala, that they were running on their record? You don't remember this? They were running on their record, and it was somebody somewhere. I guess it was the consultants. I guess they said, listen, we're not shying away from anything. We have a great record, just build back better Bidenomics. It's a thing, people have got it in their heads that it's great. And so they lied all to us like Baghdad Bob kept telling us the economy was great when people couldn't afford groceries. But the best part is, and perhaps the pivotal moment in the 2024 election, which is no doubt where the DNC really ran aground, is when Kamala Harris was asked in that one interview, is there anything you would have done differently? Nothing. Like, not one little thing. It was nothing. Nope. I don't know. Remember this? I don't remember what exact words were, but there's basically no daylight between me and the president. And so I mean, she was given a massive softball and an opportunity in the 2024 election. The Democrats, if they'd been smart, if Kamala Harris had more than one brain cell, they could have pivoted away. This is why it was so dangerous of a maneuver for Trump. They could have pivoted away from the entire Biden disaster. But they didn't. They decided they wanted to own it. But by that point, the American public was hip to the mess that it was. So fascinating stuff. So the Democrats, they don't, they do not want to do a deep dive. Daniel Wessel, a former communications advisor to the DNC, former probably because he got fired, quote, haven't we rehashed 2024 enough? No, I don't think so. I think there's still plenty to cover here. We just won a bunch of elections this year. There's a lot of good to be learned from there. They won some elections. All you have to do is just vote for the Democrats. It's just about voting for them. Just to feel good about voting for them. Just vote. See, they're winners. They're winners. They're winning. Never mind that they'll turn the country into a third world cesspool if they get back into power. What is it saying? You go to your financial advisor, and the little disclaimer at the bottom is, past performance doesn't guarantee future results. I have a pilot friend of mine who puts that up in his cockpit. Imagine you're boarding the plane and you've got the DEI hired there, and past performance doesn't guarantee future results. That would be a nerve-wracking flight. I can tell you that for sure. So the Democrats are the party of vibes. We know this from Mamdani. Mamdani's the vibe king. Bring us the vibes. They don't want to. Well, I'll tell you this. An honest assessment of the Biden term leading up and through the 2024 election would be a real vibe killer for Democrats. So they're not wrong in this, but nonetheless, right? This is what they're contending with. Now, what I find fascinating is, there's this whole thing now where Tapper's one of them, right? The media figures, after carrying water, they were obviously covering for Biden for 4 years. Longer, in fact, right? Starting with the 2020 election. Oh, he's fine. He's great. He's incredible. Boy, that Biden guy, he's got pep in his step. Meanwhile, he's shuffling around like Mr. Magoo. And these same people now are trying to do the deep journalism on Trump. Like, they're looking at everything. Boy, there's something not right with the guy. And Tapper got Tapper. I don't know. Is he doing this podcast from? Is he in his pajamas? Tapper's. I don't know. He's doing some kind of podcast interview, and he gets into how now he has learned from the Biden years. They can't. They've got to be real journalists now, and really look at Trump. I called BS on this right from the very beginning. Here's Tapper just the other day.
We cover it all the time on my show, all the time. And I think that is to a large degree because we saw what happened with Biden, and while we covered it, we didn't cover it. Maybe we didn't ask as many questions as we should have at the time. And I think it is a legitimate question for any president of any age, but particularly anybody who is like in the range of being an octogenarian, right? We cover it all the time.
No, you didn't. You didn't cover it all the time. You shut down people who raise the question. There are hours of tape of Tapper running interference for Biden. You know, the real truth is they're all Democrats, and they're all, deep state Democrats, Washingtonian Democrats, New York Democrats, right? East Coast city, institutional types. And Trump obviously is to them is the exact wrong thing, right? He doesn't. They don't. Trump is terrible, and in the eyes of these people like Jake Tapper. So they had to pull out all the stops. And if you're going to do an actual Democratic National Committee deep dive, you might as well, in those interviews, recognize, and I bet this may be some of what, I mean, if people are being candid in these interviews and going, well, what went wrong in 2024? Maybe it was your over-reliance on the mainstream media. Because I think somebody told Kamala Harris, look, you just have to have a pulse. Like, we got this, right? Trump's a buffoon, right? Everybody knows he's Orange Hitler. He's like literally a fascist. We've been telling him, we've been propping up the old guy, that's not here anymore, who's shuffling around having ice cream cones. We told him, you got to go dark, Brandon. You got to go in there dark, Brandon, and you got to really paint the picture that Trump is a threat to the republic. And we can run whoever we want. Yeah, Kamala Harris, whoever, whatever. Doesn't matter. You're going to win because you're saving democracy. And the media, the free media, is anything but that. They're working furtively behind the scenes to prop up the disaster that was the Biden administration. Joe Biden then running for re-election, supporting him, wouldn't let a word in edgewise about his ill health. And then when Kamala took the helm, couldn't bring it up either because, of course, somebody dared ask too many questions about Biden. Naturally, it would sink further what little was left of Kamala's credibility. Who are these people? Jake Tapper saying this with a straight face. What a sociopath. All right, back in a moment. Don't go anywhere, folks. I don't know. Is it time to refi yet, Robbie? That's what I want to know. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Friends, greetings, and welcome to the What's Right show. All right. So Trump, you got to get to this here because it matters. To you, to me, to anybody that has a mortgage, a credit card, or whatever, right? You're paying an interest rate. Interest rates have been historically high here as a result of the Biden fiasco. So Trump got into this a little bit yesterday in the White House from his address. He's, by the way, beautiful Christmas decorations in the background. I like this. Who was it that had the really austere cold Christmas decorate? Was that Melania in the first term that people were panning? Well, it's nothing like that here. This is all beautiful tinsel and holly and nice decorations over the mantle of fireplaces behind Trump. But this is what he said about interest rates. Very, very important.
The yearly cost of a typical new mortgage increased by $15,000 under Democrat rule. In 11 months, we've already gotten that annual cost down by $3,000, and it's coming down a lot lower. Wait till you see. The numbers are going to be shocking. And I'll soon announce our next chairman of the Federal Reserve, someone who believes in lower interest rates by a lot, and mortgage payments will be coming down even further. Early the new year, and you will see this, in the new year, I will announce some of the most aggressive housing reform plans in American history.
Great. Can't wait. Now, fundamentally, right, Jerome Powell is sabotaging the Trump administration. He's sabotaging the country in the process. If we have 2.7 inflation, okay, interest rates shouldn't be as high as they are. And the reason they are high is that these Trump-hating leftists would rather burn the economy and hand congressional control to Democrats than risk giving Trump a win. This is what it's all about. Jerome Powell wants to put Democrats in power in Congress. Why? Well, in part, he has some liability and some exposure. He doesn't want to be subject to Republican congressional subpoenas. So that's, I get it. I mean, he's motivated here to have his friends back in charge. Wants to clip Trump's wings a little bit. Plus, I'm sure no fan of Trump intrinsically, right deep down inside. Now, Trump closed the speech here with this sort of rousing ending here to it all. But it's a summation. It's a summation of where we are, and really incredible when you think back to where we were right before Trump went into office.
Tonight, after 11 months, our border is secure. Inflation has stopped. Wages are up. Prices are down. Our nation is strong. America is respected. And our country is back, stronger than ever before. We're poised for an economic boom, the likes of which the world has never seen.
Yes. Absolutely fantastic. I believe it. It's possible. I don't know how quickly it will come, and you can tell. I mean, Trump is, like, for example, the comments about the mortgages. I don't think the cost of mortgages really come down that much. So I don't know where Trump is getting those numbers and how he's putting it together, but he's keen, right? He's a salesman. And what he wants more than anything is to sell our economy. And economies are tricky things. Obviously, there are fundamental principles at play, right? You can't just drop free money into the economy and think it's going to all be hunky-dory and not eventually have to pay the price. You have to have real private sector growth in order to see increasing GDP, right? There's basic fundamentals, but some of the economy, and it's not insignificant, is based on perception. And that's something that a positive, strong person like Trump can influence. And that's what Trump is doing here. He wants to influence people believing that the economy is good. He's going to will it into existence. Robbie, is this what Susie Wiles meant when she said to Vanity Fair that Trump had an alcoholic's personality? She clarified it, right? She clarified the comment. She goes, he's just this guy that he really thinks that he can make anything happen. Well, maybe she should have just said Trump is a guy who thinks he can make anything happen, and leave the reference to alcoholics, off to the side. By the way, Trump probably would be a massive drinker. It's why he doesn't drink. And people who have, an addictive personality. So he's probably addicted to, his phone, to Twitter, and to Truth Social. He's addicted to Diet Coke, right? He knows he has to stay away from alcohol. Oh, boy, the Vanity Fair piece is still going to go. It's one of the dumber things this year. I have to tell you that. No question about it. So, but anyway, that's what I'm getting at, right? The economy can be influenced by Trump getting up there and saying things are going to work out. And the media is going to guffaw and say, oh, what is he doing? I mean, you can't will it into existence. The problem is that Trump has a history of making things happen out of thin air. Trump has a history of surprising, right? Well, surviving certainly, but surprising his critics and even, frankly, his supporters. What he achieved in 2023 and 2024 is not for the faint of heart. Few people in his position would have been able to effect such a turnaround. And why am I bringing this up here? I'm removed now from the 2024 election by a year, and it's now more about what can you do for me. But I'm just telling you that the guy that can survive that much lawfare, that much, what would you call it? Maybe he really was betrayed by so many of his friends and his so-called allies, and come back the way that he has, come back to an even bigger win than he saw in 2016, come back and build the administration that I think he always should have had back in 2016, that if he had done all these things in 2016, 2017, after getting into office for his first term, he never would have lost the 2020 election. I know it could be semantics, right? I don't know if you lost it. The point is, it just did not have enough votes to overcome the fraud. And I know people who voted for him. And I know a lot of people actually that voted for Trump in 16, not in 20, but then voted for him even more enthusiastically than ever in 2024 and admitted it. Well, don't look at me. I'm a 3-time Trump guy. And if he runs again, I'm voting for him, 4th time. I'll tell you this. You see, by the way, Marco Rubio, he said yesterday that if J.D. Vance runs in 2028, I don't think he said 2028. If I think he was careful about that. I think he said if Rubio decides to run in the next election, that Vance run in the next election, then Rubio will wait. So the buzz is, a Vance Rubio ticket. The two are very close, getting along. Would be lovely. But first, we got to save the country, and it's happening. Exciting stuff. Okay, got top of the hour. How does this happen? It's flying by today, Robbie. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. This hour of the program brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. Friends, this hour of the program brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, the only law firm to trust for your injury case, Nevada, California, and everywhere in between. The Mojave Desert, that's what I'm talking about. The 15, it's a dangerous place. 800-304-2000. 1-800-304-2000, because you deserve what's right. All right, folks, I'm interesting in light of the economic news, and there are reactions sifting in here, collecting everything, hoovering it up in real time to present to you, as always, up-to-the-minute information. Now, Harry Enton, you know who Harry Enton is. He's the CNN data guy. And he's been lately looking at the polling and seeing a rosy picture for Democrats, particularly coming out of the government shutdown. Conventional wisdom is that Republicans are going to lose the midterms. Now, how do you define a loss? I'll tell you, I think it's pretty easy. I think if Republicans lose control over the House of Representatives, that's a big L, right? That's a big loss, and it's going to be a devastating, and I mean that, I'm not exaggerating, it's going to be a huge problem for Donald Trump, because now all the subpoenas and the investigations and the nonsense is going to begin. Right now, all they have are the federal courts. Right now, the Democrats, literally all the Democrats have going for themselves in Washington, okay, is, Judge Boasberg, who almost single-handedly is working full-time to stop Trump, and the filibuster. It's like Boasberg and filibuster. That's what the Democrats have. If they get Congress, if they get the House of Representatives, and all of a sudden they can start initiating impeachment proceedings against members of Trump's cabinet and Trump himself, a big problem. Okay, we want to avoid this. Conventional wisdom is that the Democrats are favored to win. I don't know. Do we have some Kalshi numbers or any of the betting site numbers right now? Is money coming down on this? I bet it is, Robbie, right? I'm curious if the numbers have shifted. See, folks, I didn't look at this. I'm going to bet you, Robbie, I'm going to bet you that they have shifted in the Republicans' favor overnight. You tell me if I'm right or wrong. Yeah, I could be wrong. Sometimes I am wrong. Just doesn't happen very often. So he's looking it up right now. In the meantime, tell me this. Are Democrats actually popular. I mean, remember I mentioned last hour, they were going to do a deep dive in everything that went wrong in 2024. And then the lead up to 2024. So Biden, Kamala, Biden, that whole clown show. And then they decided we're not going to do it because after holding a lot of interviews with a lot of people in a lot of different states, in fact, all 50 states, the few hundred interviews yielded a shocking bit of information that they're not wanting to release, like that the Democrats suck and are terrible, and that it would only make them look dumb and stupid and ineffective. So are the Democrats actually that effective? And here, Enton this morning on CNN goes through the polling. Congressional Democrats, how popular are you? Well, hint, not so much.
The net approval rating for Democrats in Congress, you said it, Kate Baldwin, the lowest ever. Look at this. Overall, they are 55 points underwater. Their approval rating is south of 20%. It's even worse when you look at independents. Look at this. Negative 61 points. That means that their approval rating is 61 points lower than their disapproval rating. Quinnipiac has been polling this question for the better part of the 21st century. They have never found Democrats, at least those in Congress, in worse shape than they are right now.
Wow. Now, I feel some validation here because I always thought that the shutdown made the Democrats look far worse than the Republicans. But, you know, I think the Democrats were able to hijack the healthcare affordability issue, which is just to me complete advanced sociopathy. Like, I don't understand. They created the Obamacare mess. I think maybe one Republican, no Republicans ever signed on to that. Memory serves. No Republicans voted for it. Democrats forced it through. Had to buy off their own members in some cases, right? It was all sorts of promises and horse trading. You had Nancy Pelosi. She was walking the halls of Congress with like a bat, a baseball bat, threatening to, not to literally, but to politically bludgeon anybody who voted against it. It wasn't popular then. It's not popular now. Now it's been proven not to work. Obamacare. Again, Republicans have an issue here, and we'll get to that as a separate matter. So Harry Enton continues. And he says, well, is this as bad of news as you might think? Well,
what about Democrats on Democrats? Democrats' net approval rating of congressional Democrats. I want you to keep in mind, they had never rated Democrats negatively until this year. And right now, what are we talking about? We're talking about a net approval rating from Democrats. This is Democrats on Democrats. Their approval rating is actually lower than the disapproval rating, and that is quite the drop from October. I think during the shutdown, there was a bit of a boost for Democrats, right? There was a rallying around the flag effect going on, but Democrats did not like how that shutdown turned out. They have returned against Democrats in Congress.
Democratic voters think that Democrats in Congress suck. Right? I mean, suck is a term of art, but it's negative approval rating, which means, I don't know what that means. It means if Democratic voters think that electing Democrats is going to help stop Trump, that's how you're going to get out Democratic voters, right? That's how you motivate them. But if Democratic voters believe that the existing, congressional delegation isn't doing enough to stop Trump, which I suspect if you were to look in the, if you're looking to the results of this poll, you're going to find out that they're like, oh, well, they're not doing anything to stop Trump. Trump is just going through there and he's knocked down the East Wing and he is deporting illegals and bombing the boats. Those poor little crab fishermen are getting the crab fishermen. That's what they think the fentanyl boats are. They're crab fishermen, little family of out there on a little fishing boat with 4 giant outboard motors. God, people are. There are some special people out there, folks. I'm just telling you what I read. Okay. So Democrats are not stoked on Democrats. So this brings me finally to Enton's closing argument here. And when you look at the congressional, a generic congressional ballot, the Republicans, Democrats are ahead, but very, very tight margin. Listen to this.
Look at the generic congressional ballot with a Republican president at this point. Look, Democrats are ahead, but they're only ahead by 4 points. Historically, that is quite weak. At this point in the 2017, 2018 cycle, it was more than double that at 10 points. The same back during George W. Bush's second term in office, where you saw, of course, the Democrats were also ahead by 10 points. So we're talking about a lead of less than half what we normally expect. And I think that's why, at this point, there are a lot of Democrats who might be thinking, hey, we can spike that ball in the end zone. But the numbers at this point say, hold on just a minute. Yes, you're on your way to a congressional majority, but it's still a long time, and with numbers like this, considerably weaker than historically speaking, it might be a tougher road to hoe than normally.
Well, especially if you see that change from October.
Yeah, if you see, when you see your base going a 28-point shift, and when you see numbers like this, you see this overall.
A lot can change.
A lot can change. And at this point, you know what? Democrats are hoping that Donald Trump's unpopularity can ride them to a congressional majority. But you know what? When you have numbers like this, hold the phone just a second.
I love when Harry Enton says the word "ho." It's not good. It's a year, folks, is a political eternity. And what Republicans shouldn't be doing right now is panicking. What's my favorite Trump term? Panikins. It's like Kofif and panikins. The panikins are all drinking too much Kofif, getting all jittery. Yeah, there's like 4. I think there were 3 Republican congressmen from Pennsylvania alone that sided with the Democrats. Just this morning, sided with the Democrats to extend Obamacare subsidies, basically, right? Fundamentally, right, is to kill the Republican effort to force the issue and go to a free market solution. Republicans never, and I mean, folks, never, we never miss an opportunity to step on our own you-know-whatsy. All right, folks, quick break. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone, the What's Right show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, the only law firm to trust if you've been injured. 800-304-2000, 1-800-304-2000, because you deserve what's right.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Sam Mirejovsky here. Yes, I am back. Just a quick break. Okay, so speaking of CNN, Kate Baldwin. I always mispronounce her name. Anyway, Kate Baldwin. I feel like I'm saying Baldwin, but with a New York or even a Boston accent. Anyway, she had on a Harvard economist. This poor guy had to admit that things are looking good in the economy. It actually pains these people to admit that things are better in America. I'm telling you, it's wild stuff. Here's how the interview went. This is a guy named Ken Rogoff. That I can pronounce. And he is, he'll to tell you about the 2.7%, just like I was saying at the top of last hour.
I mean, I was surprised. It was a better number than anyone was expecting. Look, inflation's been very high. It's stayed high. It has not been coming down. But, people were expecting it to be above 3%. It was well below 3%. I mean, I think the president will take this as good news. The investors will think that interest rates will get cut more. So, it was a positive news. There's no other way to spin it.
Absolutely.
Those positive news, there's no other way to spin it. Funny he would bring up the word spin, right? Well, spin means you're kind of obfuscating, right? You're turning it just fast enough so people don't notice the real facts. They're just they can't really talk this down. I mean, inflation heading toward 2%, 2.7%, right? But now below 3%. I mean, 2% inflation is, some economists will say is optimal. Okay. I'm pointing this out, folks. I'm just telling you that the other side is having a bad day. They're not happy. Could it be? I'm just gonna say this. Could it be that immigration enforcement, together with tariffs, is actually making a difference in the economy, a positive difference in the economy? Because, it's funny, if you listen to the experts, if you listen to the Democrats and even a lot of Republicans, they'll tell you what you need immigrant labor. You need lots of immigrant labor. Actually, Sam, if you're smart, you're going to look the other way to illegal immigration. You're going to go to the voters every 2 to 4 years and you're going to say, yes, we're going to be tough on immigration. We're going to have deportations, no amnesty. And the minute you get in there, you turn into, Lindsey Graham. Remember, Rush would always call Lindsey Grahamnesty. Love that. It's a great moniker. But this is what the traditions of the Republican Party are based in. Because the economists, right, the Wall Street economists will tell you we need the cheap labor. If you want big results on Wall Street, if you want your portfolio to be going up, through the roof, and members of Congress, of course, are keen on their stock portfolios, you've got to flood the market with cheap labor. Therefore, conservative big business types were always pro-immigration. And they sold America downriver. What if it turns out that immigration, particularly as done by Biden, just is a disaster for the economy? What is the statistic? I remember when we were talking about the Somali fraud, and by the way, oh my gosh, I'm going to get to it here after the break. Don't you worry. The fraud, it turns out that little billion, that cool billion, whatever it was, the number, the original number, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Folks, it is bad. Somebody did the math on what the Somalis in Minnesota contribute, like what the inflows are versus the outflows, and they contribute something like on average $800 a year in all taxes. $800. Now, why? I mean, that's a whole separate conversation. The Netherlands did a similar study, by the way. They had a study where they looked at people from Syria and Afghanistan and what their cost benefit was over the course of a lifetime. And it was negative. Like over a course of a lifetime, these immigrants, right? Because we need immigration. We need immigrants. If you listen to this, right? There were it cost the state, hundreds of thousands of euros over the course of that person's lifetime. And then it looked at immigrants from countries like the U.S. or Japan, or other developed, Western countries, Korea, South Korea, obviously. And they looked at these people and they go, wow, these people had positive inflows. They were net contributors by significant numbers. So when we talk about immigration, very important, immigration is all fine and dandy. It has to be the right immigration. Why would we import people here who cost us money or contribute very little? Why would we import people who want to harm us? Why would we import people that hate America? These are all not good ideas, objectively. Like they're not a good policy. So I'm just telling you. This is the problem. Now, the flip side of it, of course, is, right, how many times have Harvard economists told us that if these terrible tariffs come into play, if Trump is able to get his tariffs, the economy will crater? Isn't it funny how that hasn't happened? The two things they told us about, if you start picking up people off the street, Sam, if you start doing it, if you do that, you wait and see, the economy is going to crater because we need that immigrant labor. Well, it's not happening. The same is true for the tariffs. The tariffs are in place. And we have reciprocal tariffs with countries, right? They tariff, we tariff, whatever. But just finally we're reaching some equality. I mean, they like that word. I might as well use it. Tariff equality. They don't like tariff equality. They like all sorts of other equality and equity and whatnot, but not when it comes to tariffs for whatever reason. That's where the Democrats want our country to get screwed. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. The fraud, the welfare fraud. See, this goes in with the immigration conversation. Importing a bunch of people who are screwing us over on welfare. Not a good idea, right? Yep. All right, back in a moment. Don't go anywhere, folks. All right, folks, listen up. Sam Mirejovsky here for Sam and Ash Injury Law. Your personal injury case, your claim, right? It's really what it is not a do-it-yourself project. You're capable. I get it. You're a smart person. But you don't know what the insurance company knows. And they make it their mission to save themselves money. And they'll save money at your expense. This is very important. I get people who call me every day. And they tell me exactly this. They went through, they trusted, they listened to their adjuster, they listened to their own insurance company, to their agent, and got led down a path where now they end up owing thousands of dollars. They're upside down in their case. Don't do that. And if you are in that position, it's not too late to turn it around. Call Sam and Ash Injury Law, Nevada or California. 1-800-304-2000. 1-800-304-2000. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Some terrible news. Speaking of accidents, you see this plane crash. Greg Biffle, NASCAR champ, veteran, apparently now has been confirmed this morning that he was in the plane crash. It was a giant crash there of a private jet. Where was this? Statesville Regional Airport in North Carolina. Cessna C-550. That's a very small, light jet. Probably seats about 7 or 8 people, but I mean it's small. Apparently, he was on the plane. His wife and kids. It's just horrific. Now Biffle, you may remember, this is the guy that was personally saving people in North Carolina during Helene, saving people in his helicopter. So I'm not sure here. It sounds like he was probably piloting this plane himself. He was a pilot, but this was a good guy who was helping people who were stranded. And you remember that the authorities, the Biden people, got mad at the privateers who were doing more to help hurricane survivors during Helene than FEMA was. Just absolutely heartbreaking. Horrible. Just before the holidays. Listen, I have to tell you this update here on the $1 billion fraud in Minnesota. Think more like $9 billion. An ABC Minnesota affiliate today ran a story how there is half or more of the $18 billion that is billed through state programs is tied to fraud. And they cited the Assistant U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson, saying that the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, pulled claims for 14 programs that were identified by Minnesota officials as being, I guess, pretty, vulnerable to fraud, and found that $18 billion in Medicare billing since 2018. Now, not all these payments are illegitimate, right? Some of them may very well be kosher, but there is an estimate based on a quick review that half or more of the $18 billion was received through fraudulent means. This is staggering amounts of money that has been lost, is what Joe Thompson said. So this is going to get interesting. It's going to get this was always my suspicion, right? I mean, the initial number getting downplayed by Tim Walz. Turns out that the number actually may be much higher. One Minnesota lawmaker told Fox, again, the Fox affiliate out there, said that the assisted living fraud scheme includes someone that was indicted but is still getting state pay. This whole thing is a vast criminal enterprise up there in Minnesota. Yeah, this is Republican State Rep Kristen Robbins. She's running to replace Tim Walz as governor. I mean, hell, this keeps going this way. I mean, between Trump, showing the door to a bunch of these people who are probably voting illegally in the elections, cleaning up election fraud, cleaning up this welfare fraud, putting people in jail. You might start seeing Republicans get elected in Minnesota again. It's absolutely astonishing. And it's not limited to just Minnesota. There are other states that are going here, but one of the focal points of the story is that there have been a lot of people that have come into Minnesota that are not Minnesotans. And it's not to say that the Minnesotans themselves are not criminal. Of course, there are some, native-born Minnesotans who get themselves into trouble. But, you take a country like Somalia, and it's basically been a failed state now for the past decade and a half, at least. And so the people that are coming here from a country like Somalia have let me grab and take whatever I can get for myself. And that's their mentality, right? That's the thinking here. That's how these people operate. And so all of a sudden, a law, and mind you, Democratic lawmakers in the state are getting their kickbacks from all of this. It's certainly they're getting campaign contributions. And that was what was caught on the Keith Ellison tape, where the Attorney General of Minnesota, was talking to people, representatives of these fraudsters that have now, some of which have been convicted, who are saying, well, yeah, we need help. We need you to run interference. People are asking questions about our program. And yeah, of course we're going to do it. Oh, by the way, I need a campaign contribution for me and for my son. It's a complete scam. It's wild, the scale at which it is occurring. House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, who is from Minnesota, said that accountability is coming. Accountability cometh. Well, it can't come a day too soon.
We anxiously await Tim Walz's response to House Oversight Committee Chairman Jamie Comer regarding what he knew about the $1 billion in fraud. Walz has had 7 years to address and stop the fraud. It wasn't until President Trump made this a national issue that Walz started to pretend that he cares about his constituents' tax dollars supporting a terrorist group in Somalia. Accountability is coming, Governor. Our dishonest, failed governor must and will answer for his complete incompetence.
Now, I saw some people here going, well, Congress needs to focus on other things, political retribution. Sorry. Last I checked, these are federal funds going into some of these programs. Who's the appropriator in government? It's Congress. Guess who has oversight over appropriations? Oh, there you go. You guessed it. Hell yes, Congress needs to be asking questions about where federal tax dollars went and how they were used. It's completely appropriate. Don't let anybody at the water cooler start telling you that, Emma or anybody else in Congress shouldn't be poking their noses into the Tim Wells rabbit hole. Ooh, wow. Just made a little mental picture there of what that must look like. Okay. No, it's just this guy almost became vice president of the U.S. And I say almost because he was the nominee. The Democrat nominee. I still sometimes, Robbie, I have to admit this. To feel good, I pull up clips of the campaign back when Kamala Harris was, we would talk about her every day. And it's almost sad we don't anymore because it was good for material, right? Were you ever at a loss of what clip to pull out on any given day that people could have a good laugh over? Like Kamala Harris made producer Robbie's job easy. He'd basically, blindfold them and put a clip up there, and it would be radio gold. Well, I go back and I watch these clips, and I'm reminded, and we've forgotten quickly, right? I'm reminded of Tim Walz being the guy that was running around, doing the white dudes for Harris stuff. And doing the extremely cringy but trying to be kind of relatable videos where he was talking to white guys, and then they did the ads. Remember the ads where they had these guys that were like, I'm a farmer, and I'm a gun loving American, 20 generations, whatever, all this nonsense. And then you found out later there were actors, like the guy was from California somewhere. No, it was, all of it was so fake. And, now that some time has gone by, if you go back and you watch particularly the Tim Walz stuff, the guy is dangerous phony, a dangerous phony. And there's something fundamentally off about the guy and his miserable wife. But you go back, this guy could have become a vice president, could have been in line to be president. Tim Walz. And he has presided over a mass raiding of federal and state funds in his state. If you think this is just some whoopsie daisy, like I didn't see it coming, I didn't know, you just stay tuned, por favor. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. Oh, look! The Aussies found some terrorists this time before they got into trouble. You see this? Yeah. Police captured on video pulling over a van full of, let's just say suspicious-looking gents who apparently were armed and on their way to commit some planned attack. That's what we know right now. I'm just saying, I guess they're capable of policing down there. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone, friends. Good to be here with you. I don't know. I take this. I saw the video. Of these guys, the response, okay? The cops that showed up to pull over these guys in Australia today, those are not the cops that were hiding behind the car. The clip we played yesterday, the eyewitness who barely made it out of there alive, her and her husband and her child, talking about how the police were hiding behind cars and that when she went to reach for a firearm that was left laying on the ground, that they yelled at her to stop. Well, what do they call those pink hats that the women would wear? You know that word? That's the word to describe the Australian police. But these guys had some brawn, had some muscle. Yeah, these guys could, come over here, frankly, and earn some money there. What is that show? What is that review called, Robbie, that you love? You always go every time you're in town. Thunder Down Under. Kidding. Robbie does not go to that. No, these guys look like they had some brawn. I mean, this was an aggressive takedown. This is some kind of an elite unit, which means there's something really big afoot here, which means there was this is part of a bigger attack. And did you see that professor, that MIT professor who was a nuclear physicist? Some kind of nuclear guy gets this happened in Boston. He just overnight got shot. And it was, I guess, a targeted attack, maybe an Iranian sleeper agent. And I read that story, and I'm reading this one, of course, and of course what happened in Bondi Beach over the weekend. And I'm thinking, God, you know what? Really, Israel's our biggest problem. God, if only we just had fewer Jews. Somebody's going to take that clip complete out of context, Robbie, and smear me with it. Right? I mean, even Republicans, you dimwits, you keep going, oh, my God, Israel. Meanwhile, the Islamists are taking over, folks. They've got grand designs, make no mistake about it. We're sitting over here lamenting, America first, Israel third or fourth, not even second. I mean, if there's a country out there that's on our side when it comes to these people, if there's a country out there that has a proven track record of eliminating nasty Islamic terrorists, it's Israel. So sometimes I have to explain to you why I have an affinity for Israel. We're on the same side when it comes to saving our rear ends as Western, people against this onslaught of barbarians. That's really what it is. Now, I go back to this all the time. I really think, folks, when the historians, dust off their hands or their tablets or their little microphones or their brain chips, when they're going to be writing by just writing, thinking stuff, and the words will appear. When the historians get to analyzing our era that we are in, one of the volumes that will be written about this is political correctness. You call it woke, but political correctness, really, the fear of telling the truth. Suddenly, it's not cool to tell the truth. Suddenly, you can't say, well, listen, there's a connection here. There's a bunch of people that are going into public places and blowing people away. And they're yelling something. I think it sounds like Allah Akbar. And they want to overthrow our way of government, right? So it's not just violence for the sake of violence. It's political violence. It's intended to have an effect, a chilling effect. We're going to have these people. They're all going to keep doing the same thing. And we're not allowed to criticize it. Because if you criticize it, see, you're Islamophobic. I can't. You don't want to be Islamophobic. You don't want to be phobic of anything. You want to be open arms. You want to love. You got to support. You got to, my man. I love you. I keep thinking about Rob Reiner. Sometimes love is fatal. And I don't think I drove this point home far, deep enough. It's where I was headed yesterday, and then a first day back on air, and I was sort of discombobulated, let's say. Rob Reiner died, and I'm not judging him for this, okay? Because I don't know that I would do things much different. I mean, if one of my kids became a drug-addled sociopath, would I lock him out and never talk to him again and put a restraining order and, the whole 9 yards? I don't know. That'd be very tough to do as a parent. Reiner tried, and he failed. He did not adequately, though, because proof is sort of in the pudding, in the result. he did not adequately appreciate the risk that the love that he had for his son presented for him, himself, and for his family. Liberalism at scale makes us disavow our instincts. And these instincts have been honed through a millennia of what? Of evolution, of just, right? This is behavioral science. And when you look at this evolutionary biology and you study it, you realize that you identify that there are these dangers out there and you're able to make causal connections and then you avoid it. But leftism teaches you to disregard your programming. It's a racism, it's bigotry, it's a phobia. And so we do it. Well, the left does it, and a lot of people around the Western world have done it, and it has had a terrible consequence. Australia has spent more time talking about Islamophobia than they have been talking about kicking out terrorists from their country. Full stop. A Nigerian immigrant rapist gets less jail time in the United Kingdom than someone who posts a dank meme. This is where we're at. Like I said, this is what the historians are going to agonize over, pore over. How could these people in the 21st century, how could they be so stupid? Well, maybe somebody's going to do them a favor and like cryogenically freeze Tim Walz's brain, right, when the time comes, so that science can someday figure out what the hell went wrong with us. Sam Mirejovsky here. Been a great hour again, as usual. Sam at what'srightshow.com, Sam at what'srightshow.com, and at What's Right Sam on X. Find me there. I periodically go on and post funny stuff that would 1,000% put me in a British prison. All right, with that, I got to go. I'll see you tomorrow.